So throughout the past few days, there has been some discussion on social media about the top rap groups of all time. Math Hoffa of My Expert podcast and of battle rap fame uploaded his top 17, and it was met with criticism because he left off some important groups. But hey, it was his list, and these lists are going to be a little subjective even when we want them to be objective. Since it is list week, I got inspired to come up with a list of what I would consider to be the 20 greatest rap groups. I know I'm entering into dangerous territory, might ruffle some feathers, but for the most part, every group listed here had a strong consecutive run up of albums, and I really want to highlight the album runs because that was an important factor in my decision making, and also each group has some type of lasting impact on the game. But here's the deal. I decided to start with the 80s because it just made the most sense. Throwing Run-DMC and EPMD randomly into a list with 90s and 2000s groups just drove me crazy. So the ranking of this list really reflects the order to which most of these artists stepped on the scene. I also made it a point to include groups from all parts of the map. It's not just the East Coast list. It's not just the Southern list. You feel me? So setting it off at number 1, I have Run-DMC, and I feel it's only right to start out with these queens, pioneers, and innovators. Not only was their 80s discography solid, but they were the ultimate trendsetters in terms of rapping, style, and fashion. And their single, Sucker MCs, really revolutionized how rapping would sound for the remainder of the 80s, and it's just one of the most influential rap songs of all time. At number 2, I have EPMD, and there was no duo better than Eric and Parrish in the mid to late 80s. Their back and forth chemistry was pretty legendary, and they have several classic albums to their name. Eric Sermon's production was always top notch and ahead of the curve, making him one of the most underrated producers in hip hop. And to think of the groups that spawned as a result of their breakup, like Hit Squad and Def Squad. At number 3, I have N.W.A. So along with Ice-T, these West Coast pioneers were responsible for putting West Coast gangster rap on the scene, as well as standing against censorship and speaking out on police brutality and issues that affected their communities on the West Coast. You know, think of the lasting impact of an album like Straight Outta Compton and the successful solo careers that were launched. Ice Cube being one of the greatest West Coast rappers, MC Ren being one of the more slept on California MCs, just the legacy of Eazy-E, and of course Dr. Dre's GOAT producer status. At number 4, I have Public Enemy. So Chuck D has one of the most recognizable and commanding voices in hip hop. Public Enemy had what folks could argue was a strong 3-album run, classic singles, and they could be looked at as the voice for Black power and social and political awareness in hip hop. At number 5, I have the Ghetto Boys. Not only was each member of this trio unique in terms of their rapping style, but this Houston rap group was really responsible for putting the Dirty South on the map, you know, bringing hardcore reality rap to the forefront in the South. Their Mind Playing Tricks on Me single was an iconic hip hop record, easily a top 5 rap song of all time, and you wouldn't have hardcore Southern hip hop if it wasn't for the Ghetto Boys. And from a solo perspective, Scarface has one of the most consistent catalogs in the game. For number 6, I have A Tribe Called Quest. These Queens legends had great chemistry. Q-Tip and Phife Dawg don't always get recognized for their lyrical abilities, but they were dope rappers, especially Phife Dawg. Tribe had a very strong succession of albums, and to me, they were the face of jazz rap in the 90s. And to this day, I don't think any artist has made a better jazz rap album than Low End Theory. For number 7, I have De La Soul. Now, I almost chose Brand Nubian if I were to pick another group from the Native Tongues Collective, but I decided to go with De La for their incredible album run. which was stronger than Brand Nubians, respectfully. De La Soul could definitely have been looked at as early alternative rap, as their style was a little more eccentric, a little more lighthearted and honest, kind of offering up a blueprint for the future generations of rappers who were just regular guys. And I really hope that their music comes on to streaming services in the near future. For number 8, I have Gangstarr. Yeah, I know, it's just Guru and Premier, but there's really a whole Gangstarr foundation if you think about it. And to me, this was really the best rapper-producer duo in the 90s and 2000s. Gangstarr had a strong 3 to 4 album run of classic material. Guru's slow flow was influential, and Primo's production would really come to personify what was the New York boom bap sound in the 90s. I mean, few producers could really compete with Primo in a Jeep. For number 9, I have Wu-Tang. Now, if I were to make my own personal list based on who I listen to the most, Wu-Tang would probably be at the top. There has never been a group consisting of so many talented and unique MCs. All were legends in their own right with respectable discographies. Only Built for Cuban Links is one of the greatest Wu solo projects of all time, and 36 Chambers was a game changer. RZA has that GOAT status as well. Number 10, I have Outkast. So with Outkast dropping in 1994, the whole Dungeon Family sound emerged. The Organized Noise production team is still one of the more slept on producer groups. Outkast, of course, has a stellar discography. It's up there with Gangstar's and A Tribe Called Quest, in my opinion. The chemistry of Andre and Big Boy was flawless, and they were really the face of Atlanta rap before trap music jumped off. For number 11, I have Mobb Deep. So in the mid-90s, Mobb Deep was the embodiment of gritty, grimy, cold, dark, and aggressive New York rap. Prodigy had one of the most sampled hip-hop voices of all time, and in the 90s, he was in some people's top 5. And while Havoc was no slouch on the mic, he would be more known for his producer accolades. Mobb Deep also had a very strong 3-album run, with the infamous and Hell on Earth being their undisputed classic. For number 12, I have Six Mafia. Not only is this Memphis group credited with starting crunk and horrorcore music in the South, but they also influenced a lot of the production styles and sounds that we hear today. 6 is definitely one of the more influential groups to exist in hip-hop, period. I mean, Lord Finesse was a main influencer of the triplet flow. And when most people think of Memphis rap, 6 Mafia and 8-Ball and MJG are like the first to come to mind. Which leads me into number 13, 8-Ball and MJG. Now this duo is one of my personal favorites next to Mobb Deep. 8-Ball is a super slept on lyricist and street poet, and his chemistry with MJG was extraordinary. These guys were lyricists through and through, and they have classic albums and singles to their name. And Coming Out Hard is regarded as one of the most important albums to come out of the South, and these guys always made me remember that it's hard, but it's fair. Number 14, I have UGK. This was another iconic duo representing the South, Port Arthur, Texas to be exact. Pimp C was such a talented musician, and he also had one of the more dynamic personalities in the game. And of course, Bun was known for his immaculate flow. These guys will instantly come to mind anytime someone mentions Houston hip hop. They are the epitome of chill music and the pulse of Houston rap culture. For number 15, I have Cypress Hill. This was another important group on the West Coast who could be looked at as Latino rap pioneers. Yes, there were obviously Latino rappers putting it down before them, but I believe they were the first to go platinum. And they were also known for inserting stoner culture into hip hop in a big way. Be Real is another artist with such a distinctive voice. And of course, DJ Muggs is another producer legend who deserves more credit for the impact that he has on much of the underground sound today. For number 16, I have Bone Thugs and Harmony. Bone is obviously the best group to emerge from out the Midwest. They were the first to represent Cleveland, East 99, and to come in the game with their unique style of harmonizing. I mean, recall when you first heard For the Love of Money and Thuggish Ruggish Bone. Yes, there was a back and forth between 3-6 Mafia as to who originated the style first, but Bone was one of the biggest and most commercially successful groups in the 90s. Period. For number 17, I have Black Moon. So in the early to mid 90s, Buckshot had one of the best flows in the game next to guys like Grand Puba and Snoop. Black Moon's debut, Enter the Stage, is a hip hop classic and a landmark boom bap album that just doesn't get enough universal praise. But their rugged, Timberland stomping aesthetic would give birth to the whole Boot Camp collective, which is one of the most slept on collectives in rap. Without Black Moon, you just wouldn't have groups like Smith & Wesson or OGC, who could even make some people's top 20 list. For number 18, I have the Lox. So during the late 90s and 2000s, the Lox were the face of lyrical New York street rap. You couldn't find the DJ Clue mixtape without hearing the trio. The back and forth chemistry between Styles and Jada is really up there with Ray and Ghost. While Jadakiss has one of the greatest rapping voices, Styles P has a very underrated solo catalog, and Sheek Louch always held his own. Sure, their album Run isn't as strong or as celebrated as a lot of the groups on this list, but when you think about the hardest, you gotta think of the Lox. For number 19, I have the Diplomats. So when I think of a crew who best represented New York swag in the 2000s, it would be Dipset. Swag, whether we are talking style, drip, or just an artist's swag or charisma on records, is something that Dipset had in abundance. Not only were Dipset trendsetters, but they had classic mixtapes and a strong debut double album. And let's be real, when we think about the origins of Chipmunk soul production, we tend to think of that early Dipset material. Of course, Dipset was a whole movement who gave birth to the careers of Jewels, Jim Jones, J.R. Ryder, etc. You could even go as far as saying that Dipset influenced the direction of Lil Wayne heavily around the time of Carter 2, Carter 3. And for number 20, I'm gonna go with the Clipse. The brotherly chemistry that the duo possessed was undeniable. You know, when talking about the best artists in the subgenre of coke rap, you can't leave out the Clipse. As I'm often reminded of their classic lines, I'm from Virginia, where ain't shit to do but cook. I'm thinking about the success of their first two albums and, of course, the originality of the Neptune's production sound and how we heard nothing like it at the time. And to this day, Pusha T still continues to dominate people's end of the year album lists. So those are the artists who I feel should be in the top 20. But now for a quick few honorable mentions, I would include the Migos. I know purists aren't going to like it, and I get it, but you really can't deny the Migos' dominance in the 2010 trap era as far as groups are concerned and how they took that triplet flow and brought it to new heights. I would also include the following: the Hot Boys, the Roots, G Unit, the Beastie Boys, Brand Nubian, Naughty by Nature, and Onyx. But it's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit me with what your top 20 list would be. As always, it's peace and blessings. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. One.